Hello everyone and welcome to the TigerPaw Software Business Building Webinar Series. This is a live webinar series that focuses on sharing industry best practices, helpful business tips, and valuable partner training for VARs, MSPs, and technology service providers. My name is James Kernan. I'll be your host for today's call. The presenter today will be Rick Harper, CEO and founder of Decision Digital. Today's session is called 360-Degree View of Your Data to make the right business decisions for your business. We anticipate this session to last for about 45 minutes, and then we'll open it up for questions at the end. As a reminder, all sessions will be recorded, and those of you who registered will get a follow-up email with the link to the recording. Now let's get started with today's session. Rick, I'll hand the floor off to you.
Thank you, James. Welcome, everyone. Some of you are going to recognize my voice and even my name probably from the previous or the most recent TigerPaw conference. And some of this information will seem, if you are attending the conference, is going to seem a little bit familiar to you. We're going to try to dive a little bit deeper and cover some of the things that came up after the conference, some questions that arise, and talk a little bit more about some of the different views. The key component here that we're going to be working around today is going to be the new matrix view inside TigerPaw version 15. Now, a lot of people at the conference approached me and were talking about the fact that they felt like this was just kind of a rebaked version of the list views that they had become accustomed to. And nothing made me happier than to hear that, because there's so much room for me to move and be able to show you exactly what's going on inside the matrix. So to give you an understanding, the matrix, if you were to send off Microsoft SQL and Crystal reports and the current list views into a cabin for a long weekend, out would come the matrix, because it's a collection basically of all three of those items all pulled together. Why is that important? Well, many of you on a day-to-day basis are pulling information out of TigerPaw in order to try to make effective decisions. And many of you have kind of got into this time-honored tradition of running reports, attaching them as email attachments, and sending them to a group of people in order to analyze them and hopefully make decisions that you need to make. The problem with doing so is the minute that email goes out to all those team members, that information is obsolete. And running reports in a general sense seems to be something that is not as effective as it used to be. Why? We all have to make real-time decisions, and we need to be looking at things right now. Where are our technicians tracking as far as time is concerned? How are our customers doing things that they're doing right now? Sometimes reports just simply can't do that. So we needed to have a way to be able to coalesce this information from all different parts of TigerPaw and present it in such a way where it was not only easy to view, but it was also easy to build these views. Well, up until the matrix came along, the only way you could really do that was if you knew Crystal reports very well, you paid somebody to write Crystal reports, or you knew how to do some level of Microsoft SQL queries in order to build all this information in. For many of you, that's the only way that you've known how to use TigerPaw. For a lot of you, you just simply didn't have the ability to do that. I'm going to change the way you take a look at that today, and I'm going to introduce you to some of the great power of the matrix. So as you look at my screen right now, you'll see that I've got a matrix view that I've built here. Now, the way that this all operates is quite simple. Some of these views are list views like you're accustomed to seeing. The difference here is that let's take a scenario, and this is a scenario that I was presented from one of our customers. This is just a little fictitious information, but here is the scenario. So a customer bought a whole bunch of wireless gear from us, and they installed it all over the country. And as most of you probably would do, as the customer asked for that information or for that equipment, you prepared a quote, you sent it out to them, they approved it. You sold it to them through your service orders and invoice process, all well established. Customer comes back to you and says, you know, over the last year I know I've bought all these access points from you, but I just don't know where they are. Well, most of you would probably say, well, that's easy. Let's just go to the asset list and look at what this customer's purchased. And it'll show you a list of all of the things that he's bought. The problem is it doesn't tell you where they were installed. It also doesn't tell you when they were installed. So how could you do that? Well, here's what we thought about. We said, well, we use brief descriptions that are pretty static throughout TigerPaw. You can see that we've got these names are all pretty much the same. And then to the end of it, we've actually got the location of where we actually did this. These are all just service orders or where we did the work for the particular customer. So what I did was, instead of being able to go through the asset list and trying to figure this out, which you can't, wouldn't it be cool if I could just tell TigerPaw to go out there and find all the service orders under this particular customer's name, show me where the brief description contains wireless something, and display all those for me? And that's what I did. You can do that with your list view now. But what you can't do is drill down below. So now I can see where all these wireless access points were placed all over the country, and I can see the actual information inside the service order as to what was purchased. This is not something you can do in your list views now. This drop-down information is critical. So let me tell you what I've done here. What I've done here is I've prevented you from doing what most of you already do now. What is that? Well, you'd locate these service orders, you'd click on the service order, you'd look and see the information that was there, perhaps you'd go to look at the parts and labor and the task, and then you would click back and forth, service order by service order by service order, in order to be able to find this information. That is a tremendous time drain. Now, I don't even have to do that. Pay clear attention to what I'm doing here. I'm staying in this list view. I can see all the information, and all the information within the service order, I can see right here in line. That's pretty cool stuff. Let me make it a little bit better for you. Customer wants a copy of all this because they want to understand where all their stuff was and when they purchased it. I can export this information directly to Excel. The nice thing about it is when it exports to Excel, you'll see not only all of these different groups that are here, you'll also see drop-downs. And it doesn't pollute the view with having everything exploded out so you have 100 lines. No, what it does, and TigerPaw spent a tremendous amount of effort and development time making sure that this worked seamlessly. When you export this to Excel, you'll see these groups just like this. And you'll also see the plus sign next to them in Excel, just like this. So you can collapse this view, take a look at the information, and in Excel, you'll see the exact same thing. Let me say that again. Everything you see here, the way that it looks inside of TigerPaw, looks identical inside of Excel. So if you wish to export this out, you can click the button. You can tell it to export to Excel, and off it goes. If you wish to work in Excel and add comments or calculations or anything like that to this particular information, you now have the ability to do that. This is really the first kind of cool way that you can see how this information is pulled together. Let me give you another example about how this kind of stuff works. So let's take a look at my list here. You can see I've got all these different things that I have here. So now let's take a look at, well, let's look at work in progress. So a lot of you are accustomed to seeing a view like this in your TigerPaw right now. This is just a list of all the service orders that are currently out there that are open in this particular database and assigned and being looked at by all these different texts that are all here. Well, no big value here. This looks pretty normal. But what can we do to make this better? How can we leverage the matrix to make this information much more meaningful to us? Watch what I do. I can take this account name and I can drag it up here. And then I can release it. Now we've got something. Now let's take a look carefully at what I've got here. So now I've got all the service orders that are open and they're grouped by customer. And as you can see, they're in alphabetical order. The other thing that you can see if you pay close attention to this line is you'll see that this is displaying a calculation. What kind of calculation is that? Well, that's showing how long the service order has been in the system before it's been closed. You can see that it's telling me that in this particular customer's case, 28 days, 318 days, you'll see all these numbers. Well, what can this do for you? Well, now you've coalesced this information of all these service orders that are open for all of your customers, and you can see how old the oldest service order is. Now, what can I do from here? Oh, this is cool. I can drill down. I can see all the service orders that are for those customers, and, wait for it, I can drill down under those as well. Now, the old way of doing this, well, everybody knows. You'd have to go account by account or service order by service order. Let's take this out. You'd have to go one at a time and open these up, see exactly what's going on, determine what needs to happen, move on to the next one. If you're like us, every single day what you do is your network service manager will sit down with each and every one of your technicians, review their workload, kind of see what's going on, take a look at how many hours and how much time that they have amassed against any given service order, and make decisions about how their particular day is going to look. Let's take this a slightly different way. If account name isn't the way you want to do it, why don't we group it by tech assigned? Oh, now we got something. Now I can see a list of all these techs. I can see the oldest service order by days that is assigned to each one, and if I wish, I can drill down under each one of them and see all the service orders that are assigned and drill down even more. This is the power of the matrix, and this is what it does for you. Now, if you're a network service manager or a dispatcher, you can look at one view and start making decisions that before you could only make running a report. Now you can see all this information in one view instead of clicking all over the place. I'm sure that if I was standing in front of all of you right now and asked if you all thought this was a cool feature, everybody would be clapping. It is. This cut down the amount of time that our network services people had to use for scheduling. It cut it down by 80%. 80%. Because now we could see everything inside of one view. Let's take it a step further. This is a particular one that I really, really like, and it's titled Work in Progress More Than 2 Hours. Here's the scenario, and all of us run into this. You're working with customers and doing different things. I'm in the IT side of the world. I'm working with a customer that's got a 5-year-old workstation that's become infected, and the only possibility we have of saving this workstation is to restage it. Well, I want to make sure that we don't amass a tremendous amount of time into this because a customer doesn't need to spend $2,000 in labor on a $400 workstation that's 5 years old. And at the same, but that speaks to really more of a different mentality across the board. I really want to have an understanding of how much time we're amassing against service orders across the board. And when we get to certain thresholds, all of us, we kind of want to stop the bleeding now, don't we? We don't want our people to spend a tremendous amount of time working on a number of these things if they don't have to. So how can you have an understanding at any given time about how much time you're amassing against these service orders? Well, the old way was the way we're looking right now. You can show all the service orders and you can try to sort them by the amount of time or by the customer name and try to hone in all that information in order to find exactly how that's going. No, what we're doing now is I've built this view and I'm using this column inside of the matrix and I've told it to show me all the service orders that have accumulated an actual amount of time that's greater than or equal to 2 hours. And all of a sudden, it's showing me all this information. Now, I can come over here and drag this over. And I can group it by rep, kind of what I was showing you before. Now you can start to focus in on exactly what's going on, the service orders that are accumulating too much time, and focus your efforts there in order to get those things taken care of. That's really, really critical. Any questions so far? I didn't think so. Let's keep moving on and talk about a couple of other things here. So, other areas that we have that are really, really neat. Let's take a look at our list here. How about let's go over to invoices since we've talked about service for a few minutes. Let's go over here to invoices. I'm not going to save this view. Now, I'm going to show you one of my favorites. Up until this point, if you wanted to see all your open invoices, you would click on open or unpaid invoices and you'd see a list. It's going to take this just a second. And this is showing some voided ones and things like that. What you couldn't do up until now is if you wanted to start to talk about things that weren't taken care of properly with your customers, and let me give you an example of what I mean by that. All of us every day are faced with the decision about how much credit we're going to extend to our customers. At what point do they get to that tipping point of us extending too much credit to them? How are they paying? What are they doing? All those kind of things. Well, right now, the way that you have to handle that inside of TigerPaw is you can run a collections report, potentially, showing you all the open invoices. Or you can go out and go against your accounting system and have it show you a list of all the things that are out there that are open that haven't been paid. It really is difficult to bounce between two systems on an ongoing basis in order to try to make some of these decisions. Most of the time, sales managers, business development managers, people along those lines don't have access to the accounting system. But if you take a moment and think about it, people that are in that particular area of your company are making really important business decisions. They're selling, they're offering services, perhaps they're offering support. And they may be doing so for a customer that is either getting close to that threshold, hasn't been paying on time. There are a variety of things that could cause that situation to not kind of unfold the way that you want. Yet you're not going to give them access to QuickBooks. That would just be unheard of. How can we change that? How can we do something different? Well, it would be cool if you could look at unpaid invoices and be able to make decisions about that. But looking at this long, gigantic list doesn't help any of us. Why? Well, because now you're having to go through, and if you sort it by account name, you've got a lot of stuff here, and you just go looking and looking and looking and looking. You could spend an endless amount of time. Let me show you what the matrix can do with this. I'm not going to save this. I'm going to take this down. So here's a list of open invoices. You normally see this on an ongoing basis. But what happens if I take this account name and I drag it up here? Let's take a look at what I got. So I got accounts listed here. And if you take a look carefully, you'll see something interesting is happening. I've got it grouped by customer. And I can see here that it's telling me how many days old these invoices are. And I can also see the open balance. Take a look here. I'm showing a balance that's open with this customer, and I'm showing the oldest invoice day. So I know most of you are scratching your heads right now saying, wait a minute, am I seeing what I think I'm seeing? And the answer is yes, you are. What you're seeing is a collection report by account inside of TigerPaw. Until version 15, you could never, ever do this. You had to pull different things together. You had to run reports. You had to look at your accounting system, as I said before. You don't have to do that any longer. Now, you have all this information, and you have it in one view. And for any one of these, you can drill down and take a look exactly what's going on and make decisions about this. Now, think about that for just a moment. With the example that I just used about people that are making decisions about rendering support or selling, now you can give them access to relevant information about a particular account without giving them access to your accounting system. I know that many of you with this type of information will think twice about potentially extending credit to somebody. Or how about how much margin you're going to preserve in the particular deal. Are they using too much support time? You're now armed with that information without running a report, without sending it out to a million people. Let's take it one step further. What happens now if you're the person that's in charge of accounting for a company and the CEO wants to know exactly where you are from a collecting money perspective? How many people are past due? How much money is out there on the street? Or right now, you pull a report and you email it out to a half dozen people. Maybe that's every day, maybe that's once a week. It becomes very frustrating because people get it, and as you all know, that information is obsolete. Wouldn't it be great if you could just tell the person who's in charge of that particular process just to go out here and look in TigerPaw, go to the drop-down, pull up this particular matrix view, and they can look anytime they want? Wouldn't it be great if you could just tell them to stop asking you about that? Sure, it would. Now you can have real-time information right here, and you can pull it up whenever you wish. Pretty cool stuff. Same thing happens for, I'm going to give you another really, really good example, because I know this one at the conference was probably the second most popular view that I shared. What was the most popular view? Well, if you take a look at the information that's in here, these different columns that we have, I'm going to give you another situation that you all run into all the time. Invoicing is only part of the problem. The other part of the problem is knowing how people have paid you. So how do you go about doing that now? Well, you have to go into the accounting system. And maybe you can run a report on invoices and how people have paid you. And you can go back a couple of years to kind of get an understanding of how that looks. Hard to do sometimes, but you can do that information, but you have to have access to the accounting system. Every single one of us, no matter what line of business you're in, has to make decisions about what you're going to do from a support standpoint. And there's two sides of that. How much money they've spent to you, how much money they're into you for, or there's three sides. How much money they're into you for, but also how are they paid? What's their history been like? I got a guy that wants to do $25,000 in business with us. He always squeezes me for 1 or 2 percentage points every single deal. But you know what? This guy values a relationship with me. He values it so much that he pays me at 65 or 70 days on every single deal, right? We all run into this all the time. We just don't know how to gauge what that's like. And many of us that are in the process of making decisions about selling to people or rendering support don't have that kind of information available. No, the accounting people do. And when you close the deal and you book it and you walk around the office to give high fives to everybody, your accounting folks look at you and they say, oh, this guy, we're about to extend him another 50 grand and he takes 60, 70 days to pay us, and gosh, we don't have enough margin in this deal to cover that. Well, sales guy doesn't care about that. He just closed the deal. How do you empower your people on the TigerPaw end to be able to see this kind of stuff beforehand and be able to make decisions? How can you know? Well, the matrix can do it. Somebody is moving something around in there. So here's what the matrix can do. I built this little view that I call pay and revenue history. Let's not save this one that I'm working on right now. And what does it do? Well, what I've done is I've built this view, and I've got a customer in here, and I've told TigerPaw to show me all the invoices that are for the past year for this particular customer. And you'll see all these columns that are going across here, right? So here are all the invoices, and I can order them however I want. I can put them in invoice order. I can put them in date order. In this particular case, I've got it in date order, right? And it's showing me the number of payment days and all that good stuff. Now, let me show you a couple of things that we've got here. So I've got pay and revenue. I can drill down under any one of these, and I can see the invoice detail for anything that we've done here, right? Pretty cool stuff. But what I also can see, if I scroll down to the bottom, I can see that this customer is taking an average of about 19 days to pay us. And over the course of this year, they've done about $86,000. Pretty cool stuff. Let's say I want to go back further. Let's go in here, and let's change this back to, I don't know, let's just say 1,000 days. So now I'm going back 3 years. What kind of trend do we have over a 3-year period? Let's see how this customer has. Well, in 3 years, this customer's done almost $250,000. Average number of days he's been taking is 19 days. That's pretty darn good. See what I've done here? You can't do this without the matrix. Now, how simple was it to do this? Well, let's dive into this for a second. What makes this up? Well, it's pretty easy to do. If I hover over here, you can see how the filter is set in the matrix. I've got nothing more than the company name has this name Metro in it, and I've told it that the invoice date is greater than or equal to less than 1,000 days. That part of it's not a big deal. Let's dig in a little bit deeper inside of the matrix. Let's not save this. Inside of here, this is actually how you build your matrix view. Pretty easy stuff. You drag and drop these items over here. I find it's easier to click here. And when you do so, it shows you all the fields that are available to you, and you can put check marks next to them, and they appear on the right-hand side. Pretty simple stuff. Now, this gives you this main view that you see. How do you get this sub-view to click? Well, that's what this little piece does right here, child report data. In here, you can do the same thing. And you can see here that in the child data, I've told it to show me the quantity, the item ID, the item description, the stuff that you would normally see in the parts and labor area is what I've added as child information. So think about, there's basically 2 reports here that are rolled up into one. You've got the parent report that's got all this information that you can see behind this box. And then below that, the child has got the specific information within that particular invoice. Again, the whole idea here is that we don't have to bounce back and forth in and out between multiple views looking in and out of information in order to try to get to where we need to go. That would just be counterintuitive. Now, let me sweeten it for you. I built this report. I've got all these fields in here. If you take a look here on the right-hand side, you want to know how I was able to figure out those payment days? Well, here's the payment day field. That's there. You can see it back here. It's right there. I have the choice here what I can do here. I can tell it to not do any calculation and just show me the raw date. I can tell it to give me a count, an average, or even a sum. So for the payment days, I've told it to show me an average over that period of time so I can understand how long it's taking that customer to pay. If I scroll down here a little bit more, you'll see that on the net sale, I've told it to show me a sum. So it's going to take everything in that column and it's going to calculate it and it's going to place it at the bottom. That's the magic of it. Now, I've put all that together, and the report that comes out of it is what you see. Now, the best part is that I can come over here now, and I can share it with people. So whoever needs to have access to this, I can click on the group and I can share it with them. And I can determine whether or not they need to get view permissions or edit permissions, or both. So if you just want your business development manager to be able to see this information in order to be able to make decisions about how you're going to capture that deal or how much margin you're going to give, let them see the view. Just don't give them the ability to edit it. And you can do that with any of the matrix views throughout. Think about that for a second. All of you are probably sitting here right now either feverishly writing or doing screen captures of what you're seeing. Some of you think that this is some plugin that's been developed that we're using with TigerPaw. It's not. This is what the matrix is all about. But it's going to change the way that you're starting to look at some of this data. Besides the way that I'm assembling all this information, you're now going to have the ability to present this information to people within your organization to help you make some of these decisions that you need to make that you simply weren't willing to do before because, well, quite frankly, you're not going to give them access to your accounting system because they're going to see things that you just don't want them to see. So now I've got this really, really effective report that I can look at, and I can basically leave this saved and I can type in whatever customer I want, and it's going to give me this information all the way through and through. It's really, really, really cool stuff. This right here was probably the most popular view that I showed at the last conference, something that people really didn't think you could do inside of TigerPaw. And now you can. Really, really neat. This really shows and demonstrates the power of the matrix and exactly what it can do. Let's take a look at a few more. This one's going to take a second to load up, but it'll be worth it. So there's two systems that are inside TigerPaw that every one of you need to be really, really familiar with. One system is called the reserved item list, and the other one is this matrix view that I'm about to show you. Reserved items is something that I've really learned over the years that a lot of people don't know about. Let me tell you a little bit about what that is first. Let's see if I have anything in this database under reserved items. I do. So reserved items is a system in TigerPaw, and let me kind of explain what it captures in this particular view. This is not a fancy view. This is available in your regular TigerPaw that you have right now. Reserved items are items that you have assigned in service orders that have not been invoiced yet. Things that you've bought, maybe labor that you've sold that are reserved inside of a service order, and for some reason it hasn't been invoiced. The whole purpose of this particular view is so that you can go out there and not forget about invoicing a customer for something that you've sold to them. I know that never happens with anybody, but this is what catches that. So all these particular service orders have got parts and labor assigned to them, and as of yet, they haven't been invoiced. Now, some of them you may know about. Some of them you may have forgotten about. Some of them, oh my goodness, they've just been out there forever and you have no idea. It's not uncommon when I've talked about this with a number of TigerPaw customers that they didn't know that this view existed, and they go and they look and they have stuff going back years. How does that happen? Well, it can happen in a lot of ways. There are people sometimes that will close a service order and forget to set it to go into billing. They've filtered some of those out for whatever reason and just haven't been seeing them. A lot of people don't run physical inventories on a year-by-year basis because of the business model that they're in. This shows you all the stuff that's been reserved for customers that hasn't been billed to them yet. But that's only one side of this. What happens if you've added stuff into a service order and it's not an inventory item? All these items here are actual inventory items. A server, a phone system, an access control keypad, key fobs, tangible items that perhaps you've ordered with a purchase order and brought into TigerPaw, and they've landed inside of a service order. But what happens for the non-tangible inventory items? I'm talking about things like labor, time, consulting, all those things. Well, you wouldn't order those through a purchase order. No, you wouldn't do that at all. You would be amassing time logs against a service order and then converting them into billable items in order to be sold to a customer. Well, the reserved item report's not going to know anything about that because it's not an item that's been reserved in inventory. Nope, it's just a time log that's been converted. So how do you find that? Well, up until this point, you probably really haven't thought about it. But I guarantee you they're out there. So what did I do? Well, I know this is going to come as a really big surprise to a lot of people. I kind of thought that there was a way to do this with the matrix. So here's what I did. And the reason, and this one takes a little bit long to come up. Why? Because it's looking at the entire database. So what I did was I call this one a missing invoice check. And the name is a little bit misleading. But it shows me, and let me kind of talk through this. It shows me all the service orders, with the exception of voided ones, that have parts and labor assigned that haven't been billed. So this is especially important for service orders that you voided, for example, that have parts assigned to it that you either ordered in and never filled, or ordered in and filled and never invoiced. They kind of get caught in limbo. Those won't show up in the reserved item list. This is different than the reserve item report. Reserve items only shows items filled. It doesn't show non-filled items. That's what this shows. So what I did is I created this view, and it's showing me all the items in here that have an app now that basically have, if I hover over this, you're going to see an invoice status that's either blank, not invoiced, or it ends with a percentage bill. Now what does that mean? Well, it means that there's a number that's out here and in here that's got an amount that's sitting out there that just, there's time that's been amassed against this particular service order, as you can see, that hasn't been invoiced. Now here's a good one here, TigerPaw software. There's a voided one here. It's got something against it that hasn't been billed. So I created this particular view so that I could go through and I could look and find all the service orders that are sitting in here, some that have been voided, some that have got items attached to them that were non-filled, non-inventory items, but they just got forgotten about and they were never, ever invoiced. Happens all the time. Absolutely happens all the time. This is what the matrix was able to do for us, was able to find us. This right here is lost money. Some of this you can recover, some of it you can't. But the nice thing is that you can pull all this together, have an understanding of what's there, and then you can drill down and see exactly what those items were. Pretty cool stuff about pulling that stuff together. All right, let's take a look at what else we've got that we can share today. We've talked about work in progress. We've talked about over 2 hours. Let's look at the task checklist. That would be a good one to look at. So if most of you are working in TigerPaw every day, hopefully you're working based out of your task list and not your service order list. So if I come out here, I'm going to show you, let's take a look. I'm going to find service orders that are assigned to the techs. Here we go. This is another one that I really, really like. One of the things that I like about this view, if you're assembling everything properly, is it's showing me the service orders that are assigned to techs, and I don't have a filter built to filter out the void ones. Let's do that real quick. Let's show the ones that are new. Let's show the ones that are open, just as an example. Now, this looks like a lot of the views that you normally have, and this one's going to be a little bit less matrixy, but there's important information in here that I'd like to share with you because it is part of the view. This right here. This is a column that a lot of people don't pay a lot of attention to because I'm not sure that they know exactly what it's for. And this is basically telling you the disposition of different tasks. Now, the different colors of the badgings tell you different things that are going on with the task. That's not such a big revelation. These red ones mean that they're past due, things like that. The ones that you're looking for, though, are the ones that don't have anything. All these. If you see a service order that is in your list here, and this is a matrix view that I did of service orders assigned to techs. If you see a service order that's in your list that's assigned to a tech, and you're working out of a task list view, and you see this column is blank, it means that there's no task assigned to that service order. So if your technicians are working out of a task list view on an ongoing basis and not a service order list view, which most people do, and there's no task assigned here, that service order gets lost. It's off in the ether until somebody comes back behind and looks at all the service orders that are open in TigerPaw and then tries to match them up with tasks in order to get people to do the work that needs to be done. Now, for some people, that's not a big deal. But for others that are bound by an SLA, that's the kiss of death. Because if a service order sits out there for too long and you're not meeting your SLA, there are repercussions for all different types of companies, whether it's service for free or comping part of the bill. There's a lot of different things that can happen. But more importantly, forgetting about the monetary piece of that. It's the response time that you become proud of, that you wish to give people. This is highly important when you're looking at this view, to pay particular attention to where the ones are blank that have been assigned to folks. If there's nothing here, then you don't have a task assigned to it. You're going to be in trouble. You're not going to be where you need to be from a response time perspective. All right. Let's take a look at quotes. If we're kind of covering the gamut here, I love this view. If I start looking through quotes, most of you are accustomed to seeing this. If I look through quotes and I can filter this here on the quote stats to being open, for example. A really, really good example of the power of the matrix. I know you're going to get tired of hearing me say that, but I'm going to keep saying it. Power of the matrix gives you the ability, instead of doing what you do now. You look at your quotes and you're trying to figure out what's open and trying to look at your pipeline. And you look through and you see all these different quotes, and gosh, you have no idea what's inside of each one of these. And boy, it's just a pain to have to go and open up each one and see exactly what's going on with them, what the last thing was that you did on them, all this stuff. You don't have to do that anymore. If you remember what we talked about earlier about how we built these reports with parent and child, now when I look at these quotes, I can drill down below them. This is all the information inside the quote. I didn't open it. I didn't do anything else with it. I'm just clicking on these little pluses next to it and looking at the information. I can stay in this screen and I can see exactly what I need to do at any given time and not go anywhere. It's phenomenal. The same is true if I'm looking at the service orders that I have assigned. If I come back up here and look at service orders, and I look at the service orders that are assigned to me in this particular database, I have the same situation. I can drill down right under them and see all the information. I don't have to click here and go to the service order and go back and forth. We're trying to avoid all that. We don't need to do that any longer. That's what the matrix allows you to do completely. Let's see if there's any others in here that we need to cover before we conclude today, and then we open it up for questions. No, I think we've covered all the ones that are here that I think are really, really important to give you a general idea about how the matrix works and the type of information that you can harness as a result. One last one that I can actually show you. Here's a task list view. This may become common to most people, but again, you get the idea. Here's a list of tasks that have been assigned, and I can drill down over each one of these and I can see the service order and exactly what's going on and the disposition of it and look across. Again, I don't have to click back and forth between anything. It's all right here. It's all where it needs to be so that I can make the decisions that I need to. What's the takeaway in all this kind of stuff? Well, it's kind of simple. The matrix, what it's going to allow you to do is it's going to allow you to start to coalesce information in a way that you simply couldn't do it before. You can stick with trying to take your list views that you had in version 14 or even before, and you can duplicate those inside of TigerPaw in version 15, and you'll be fine. Life will go on and everything will be good. But you're missing out on one of the most key components of version 15. If you can pull all this information together in one pane of glass and keep yourself from clicking around, I made the joke at the conference that you don't get, if you only got sky miles for every mouse click, boy, everybody would just have an incredible number of miles that they could use. Unfortunately, that hasn't happened yet. Maybe Google will come up with something at some point that will allow that to happen. But in the meantime, one of the purposes and the drivers that TigerPaw has in its daily life, there's a couple of things. One, they want to be able to pull this information together and present it to you in a timely and an appropriate manner so that you can make critical decisions without having to run reports all the time. And that's an important thing to remember about the people at TigerPaw, what they're doing. The second thing that they strive to do on an ongoing basis is reduce the number of mouse clicks that you have to do in order to get to different places throughout TigerPaw. It's an ongoing challenge to try to figure out how you can reduce that and what you can do. The matrix is a monumental step in that direction because now everybody has got the freedom to be able to pull this information together in ways that are meaningful to them. In order to be able to make decisions. And I've just kind of scratch the surface here of letting you know exactly what kind of capabilities that it's got. James, I'd like to turn it back over to you now because I think you've got a couple of things that you'd like to bring to everybody's attention.
Great. Thanks, Rick. That was fantastic. I'm a huge fan of using business intelligence in your business, and a couple of quick highlights I just wanted to go over with you to complement with what Rick had shared with you today. The first one really is I just want to, there's a lot of customers on the phone, but there's also a lot of prospects on the phone, and three areas I just want to expand on is, number one, the automated workflows and central billing. With the power of TigerPaw, you can actually, you've got the tools on your desktop now to drive cost out of your business. And in today's competitive world, you need a tool that's either going to make you money or save you money. And TigerPaw is so powerful with the automated workflows and the central billing. Sales and marketing. You know, I'm a sales and marketing person myself, and I will tell you, as a business coach for the last 10 years, everybody would always ask me, what's the best PSA out in the marketplace? And clearly, hands down, from a sales and marketing perspective, because TigerPaw grew up as a CRM tool that can do so much more now, all on one platform, but TigerPaw is by far the #1 sales and marketing tool, PSA tool in the marketplace today, period. So if you want to just manage tickets, gee, there's lots of great tools that will do that. But if you want to grow your business and take it up to the next level, TigerPaw is the tool to use. And then lastly, what Rick was just talking about, the reporting and dashboards. I live in the matrix every day. As an executive here, I manage a big team, and it's impossible to hold people accountable and to give accurate projections and know exactly what's going on with your business without having the tools like the matrix and the reporting and the dashboards to run your business. And it makes it so easy now. And one of the cool things, I don't know if Rick really hinted at, is you can actually share, based on different security level permissions, you can share these matrix reports with different departments or different individuals as well. So when you find something that's awesome, you can share it with them very easily, and they can run the same report. So next slide. So what I wanted to highlight quickly is, as long as I've got you on the phone, again, there's a lot of customers and prospects on the phone. So we've got year-end promotions for both. So number one, if you're an existing client, I encourage you to take advantage of the any additional licenses is available for you today through the end of the month. We've got a 30% discount. And then if you're new customers, because there's, again, a lot of you on the webinar today, we're running actually a 30% off promotion through December 15th. I know that's a tight window, but you know, that's available. And then if purchased by the 23rd, there's a discount, not as substantial, but it's still substantial from a big picture standpoint. So there's a awesome savings available for you. And if you've got any questions at all, contact your account manager or just email sales@tigerpaw.com, and we'll be happy to help you out. I encourage you to do that. So let's open it up, Rick, for some Q&A. We had a few questions. People typed in the question box as we were going through the presentation. I'll go ahead and read them off. Okay. The first one was, how soon can I get a link of the recording? So I think this came in like 10 minutes into the presentation. So obviously, Rick, they liked what you were talking about. As a reminder, we'll have in the next 24 hours, we'll email a link out for you to view the recording. So I'm going to send that out to everybody again by tomorrow for everybody that registered for the webinar. So great question. Yeah.
I'm going to offer up something else as well. So on the screen right now, everybody who's participating can see my contact information. If you will email me after the session is over with, I will email you back with a link. All of the matrix views that you saw that I had today, and this is something I didn't cover in there, it's a great time to cover it right now. Yeah. One of the greatest powers that is there inside the matrix is I can share all the views that I built. So if you'll email me, I will email you back with a Dropbox link, and all the views and more that you saw today, I will send you a link and you can download them for free, and you can click on a button and import them right inside of your TigerPaw, and you'll have the same exact views with all the calculations and things that you saw that I demonstrated today. Just send me an email and I'll take care of it for you.
Very cool. I want to copy that too, Rick. So I better hurry up and help get these answer to these questions. So good stuff. Good stuff.
All right, what's the next question?
Next question, can you filter a parent view to show the top percentage of accounts?
The top percentage of accounts. The answer is you can. It takes a little bit of tricky stuff to do it. Well, I shouldn't say tricky stuff. You have to use a combination of a couple of fields in order to do it, but you can. I would probably want to see an example of what percentage you were looking to find. My guess is that's probably a question of, can you show me the customers that are doing 50% of the entire amount of revenue that we're doing in our business, something along those lines. If the person who raised that question wishes to email me, then I'll be glad to answer that question direct and tell them how it can be done.
Great. Okay, thank you. Another question, how did you get the unpaid invoices to show the total amount due information and such in the matrix view?
There is a field. Let's go back and look real quick. So inside of there is a field. Well, let me just see that I'm trying to go there the hard way, and I can go there the easy way. I can go here. I believe what they're talking about is, let's just take the account name out for just a second. Are they talking about these particular amounts right here? These are all fields that are actually inside the matrix, and it gives you the ability. You'll notice here that I've got net sale, gross sale, and I've also got the balance due. These are fields that are already in there. If you edit it and you go inside, you can see that those are fields that are readily available. And what I did is basically I went in and changed the summary type on the invoice days in this particular report to maximum and the balance due to sum. And what that does is it does two things. One, it shows that information at the bottom, as you can see. But what it also does, which I think is really cool, is when you drag and drop and group this by name, it shows the amount to the right of the customer.
Yeah.
This is the piece that really, this is the sizzle. This is the piece that makes that view remarkably effective. It's this grouping piece. And so everybody's aware, you can drag any of these fields up here in order to group things together, and you can grab a second one to group below it. So if you wanted to see the account name and then invoice status, you could do that. But this is the power of the matrix of pulling the information together is really important. But man, this grouping here, that makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah, I do that all the time. That's great. It's a great feature. All right, I think that's it. Any other questions? We'll give you just a moment before we end the webinar. All right, got a couple thank yous and good jobs. All right, Rick, I think that's going to be it for us.
Wonderful.
So, yeah, so we'll wrap up today's webinar. Wanted to thank everybody. Rick, thank you for your time. And everybody, thank you very much. Happy holidays to you. And if you've got any questions, please contact us at sales@tigerpaw.com, and we'll go to work for you. All right, thanks everybody. Have a great day.
Happy holidays, everyone.
All right, bye now.